Chapter 2. When things are blackest, I just tell myself, cheer up, things could be worse. And sure enough, they get worse. Skeeve. I decided that as court magician of Posiltum, my response should be gracious. Go away. That was gracious. If you knew what my actual thoughts were, you'd realize that. Very few people ever visited me in my chambers, and I didn't want to see any of them just now. "Do you know who you are talking to?" came a muffled voice from the other side of the door. "No, and I don't care. Go away." "This is Roderick V, your king." That stopped me. Upset or not, that title belonged to the man who set and paid my wages. As I said earlier, I have learned a few things from Oz. "Do you know who you're talking to?" I called back, and hoped. There was a moment's pause. "I assume I'm talking to Skeeve the Magnificent, court magician of Posiltum. At best, he'll be the one to bear the brunt of my wrath if I'm kept waiting outside his chambers much longer." So much for hoping. These things never work in real life the way they do in jokes. Moving with undignified haste, I pounced on the door handle and wrenched it open. "Good afternoon, Lord Magician. May I come in?" "Certainly, Your Majesty," I said, standing aside. "I never refuse a fifth." The king frowned. "Is that a joke? If so, I don't get the point." "Neither do I admitted calmly. "It's something Oz, my apprentice, says." "Ah, yes, your apprentice. Is he about?" Roderick swept majestically into the room, peering curiously into the corners as if he expected Oz to spring forth from the walls. "No, he's out." "Good. I'd hoped to speak with you alone." These are really quite spacious quarters. I don't recall having been here before." That was an understatement. Not only had the king never visited my room in his palace, I couldn't recall having seen him when he wasn't either on the throne or in its near vicinity. "Your Majesty has never graced me with his presence since I accepted the position in his court," I said. "Oh, then that's probably why I don't recall being here," Roderick responded lamely. That in itself was strange. Usually the king was quite glib and never at a loss for words. In fact, the more I thought about it, the stranger this royal visit to my private chambers became. Despite my distress at Oz's unplanned and apparently permanent departure, I felt my curiosity beginning to grow. "May I ask the reason for this pleasant, though unexpected audience?" "Well," the king began, then shot one more look about the room. "Are you sure your apprentice isn't about?" "Positive. I sent him on a vacation." "A vacation?" "Yes, he's been studying awfully hard lately." The king frowned slightly. "I don't remember approving a vacation." For a moment, I thought I was going to get caught in my own deception. Then I remembered that in addition to the various interdimensional languages, Oz had also been teaching me to speak bureaucrat. "I didn't really feel your authorization was necessary," I said loftily. "Technically, my apprentice is not on your Majesty's payroll. I am paying him out of my wages, which makes him my employee, subject to my rules, including vacations, or dismissal. While he is subject to your laws, as any subject of Posiltum, I don't feel he actually is governed by subparagraph G concerning palace staff." My brief oration had the desired effect. It both confused and bored my audience. Oz would have been proud of me. I was particularly pleased that I had managed to sneak in that part about dismissals. It meant that when Oz didn't return, I could claim that I had dismissed him without charging the wage paid me by the crown. Without changing the wage paid me by the crown. Of course, this got me brooding again about Oz not coming back. "Well, whatever. I'm glad to see your philosophy regarding vacations mirrors my own, Lord Magician. Everyone should have a vacation. In fact, that's why I came to see you this afternoon. That threw me. A vacation? But, Your Majesty, I don't need a vacation. That threw the king. You? Of course not. You and your apprentice of yours spend most of your time gallivanting around other worlds. You've got a lot of nerve asking for a vacation. That did it. All the anger I had been storing up since Rupert's arrival exploded. I didn't ask for a vacation. Oh, yes, of course. And furthermore, that gallivanting around the other worlds you mentioned is stock trade for magicians, court or otherwise. It enables us to work our wonders, like saving your kingdom from Big Julie's army. Remember? How could I forget? If, however, your Majesty feels I have been lax in fulfilling my duties as his court magician, he need only ask for my resignation, and it's his. If he recalls, he approached me for this position. I didn't ask for that either. Please, Lord Magician, Roderick interrupted desperately. I meant no offense. Your services have been more than satisfactory. In fact, any reluctance I expressed regarding your vacation was based on a fear of having to run the kingdom for a period without your powers available. If you really feel you want a vacation, I'm sure we could work out something to... I don't want a vacation, all right? Let's drop the subject. Certainly. I just thought... very well. Shaking his head slightly, he headed for the door. Winning the argument put me in a much better mood. After the beating my ego had taken from Rupert, it was nice to hear someone say that they thought my powers were worth something. It occurred to me, however, that winning the argument with the man who paid my wages might not have been the wisest way to bounce back. Your Majesty? The king stopped. Aren't you forgetting something? He frowned. Like the original reason for your visit. Since I wasn't asking for a vacation, and you weren't offering one, I assume you had something else on your mind. Oh, yes, quite right. But all things considered, this might not be the time to discuss it. What, because of our misunderstanding? Think nothing of it, Your Majesty. These things happen. Rest assured, I am still your loyal retainer, ready to do anything in my power to assist you in the management of your kingdom. As I said before, I was getting pretty good at shoveling when the situation called for it. Roderick beamed. I'm so glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that, Master Skeeve. That is precisely why I came to you today. And how may I be of service? It's about a vacation. I closed my eyes. For a brief moment, I knew, mind you, how Oz felt. Oh, hell. I knew what it felt to be sincerely trying to help someone, only to find that someone seems bound and determined to drive you out of your mind. I don't know why I find that so funny. The king saw my expression and continued hastily. Not a vacation for you, a vacation for me. That opened my eyes, figuratively and literally. You, Your Majesty? But kings don't take vacations. That's the whole point. Roderick began pacing the floor nervously as he spoke. The pressures of a king mount up like they do on any other job. The difference is that as a king, you never get a break. No time to rest and collect your thoughts, or even just sleep late. From the coronation when the crown hits your head until it's removed by voluntary or forcible retirement, you are the king. Gee, that's tough, Your Majesty. I wish there was something I could do to help. The king stopped pacing and beamed at me again. But you can! That's why I'm here. Me? I can't approve a vacation for you. Even if it were in my power, and it isn't, the kingdom needs a king on the throne at all time. I can't spare you, even for one day. Exactly. That's why I can't leave the throne unattended. If I wanted a vacation, I'd need a stand-in. An alarm bell went off in my head. Now, however much Oz may have nagged me about being a slow student, I'm not stupid. Even before I met Oz, heck, before I learned my letters, I knew how to add 2 and 2 to get 4. In this case, 1 2 was the king's need for a stand-in. The second 2 was his presence in my quarters. And the 4 was, "Surely your majesty can't mean me." "Of course I mean you," Roderick confirmed. "The fact is, Lord Magician, I had this in mind when I hired you for your current position." "You did?" I could feel the jaws of the trap closing. If this was indeed why the king had hired me, I would be ill-advised to refuse the assignment. Roderick might decide my services were no longer needed, and the last thing I needed was, with Oz gone, was to get cut off from my source of income. I wasn't sure what the job market was like for ex-court magicians, but I was sure I didn't want to find out firsthand. As you said earlier, the powers of the court magician are at my disposal, and one of the powers you demonstrated when we first met was the ability to change your own shape, or the shape of others, at will. The disguise spell. It was one of the first spells Oz had taught me, and one of the ones most frequently used over our last several adventures. After all the times it's bailed me out of tight spots, who would have guessed it would be the spell to get me into trouble? Well, there was the time that had gotten me hung. "But, Your Majesty, I couldn't possibly substitute for you. I don't know how to be a king." "Nothing to it," Roderick smiled. "The nice thing about being a king is that even when you're wrong, no one dares to point it out. And besides, it will only be for one day. What could possibly go wrong in one day?"